Welcome back to another episode of Teen Talks Podcast. I'm here with my film friend Sarah.
Hi guys.
So me and Sarah just met. Well, we met off like a Zoom call,
We
not
met
Zoom, a classroom,
classroom.
Zoom classroom and film
Yeah,
at York.
yeah.
So it's fun always seeing people on the calls for the whole semester, and then
And
be like,
then
"Hey, I was supposed to see you in September
yeah,
if Corona didn't happen." So
exactly.
it's nice to connect with our film friends. So I wanted to start this podcast. We are both film students, and I wanted to introduce of like people know why I'm in film school via the podcast, via the videos. But I want to know why you chose to get into film.
That's a really good question that I don't really have a very good answer to. I feel like every time someone asks me that, the answer is I just always knew. Like I
Uh-huh.
always had a passion for film ever since I was young. It was more so like a passion for storytelling. Like I feel like everybody as a kid is like, in their fantasies and we're all very
Yeah.
imaginative, but that just stayed with me growing up and that was where I felt most passionate, most happy. I never stopped writing. That's like where I feel like my passion grew is just my passion for writing stories, listening to stories, reading stories. And then eventually seeing that visually face to face, like by watching movies and stuff, just had me so enamored from a really young age. And I just knew from the jump, like that's what I wanted to do. I
Uh-huh.
didn't know specifically what in film it was that I wanted to do, whether it was acting or directing or screenwriting, like at a young age. But I just knew for a fact that I had to be involved in making movies because that's where I feel like I learned so much about life and where I felt most happy and most passionate. So yeah, I kind of just always knew.
You just knew it. Because
Yeah.
I was thinking when I wanted to go into film school, like there's two different people. There's the people that kind of just want to explore the arts, and there's
Hmm.
the people that know this is for them for sure.
Yeah.
Do you know where you fit in the film industry when it comes to like being a director, cinematographer, working with color, working with sound? Is there any specific things you want to like pursue?
Yeah, for sure. I specifically already know that I want to direct and I want to screenplay, like I want to write screenplay.
Uh-huh.
That's a really interesting question because like the industry is so big and it's so cutthroat and it's also changing every year, every decade. It's
Yeah.
different, and I feel like right now in Hollywood specifically, it's getting so diverse and new stories are being told that really weren't told before. And it's kind of interesting to like find where I fall into that because screenplay writing is so broad. You can write so many different
Yeah,
stories.
there's never enough. You can never run out of creativity.
Exactly. But like what kind of stories am I trying to tell is like the question that I'm always asking myself. And I kind of know like I like to tell stories about people, like the type of people that I grew up around. So like stories of people in low income neighborhoods, stories of people of color and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But again, I like to think I'm very versatile so that I can always change. I can always dabble into other stories and things like that. But it's definitely screenplay writing and directing for me.
So you're just getting into that, like, I don't know what story I want to tell, but let me learn a little bit, explore,
Yeah.
and then experience through any other,
I mean,
film
I
ventures.
know what stories I want to tell, but I don't want to just like limit myself to those stories.
Yeah.
I like things that just kind of, are fantasy like or just make people think. And then I like movies that really make people think about their realities, think
What are
about the
your
world.
What are your favorite types of movies?
Definitely dramas.
Yeah.
Definitely dramas.
I well, rather than genre, kind of like more sort of like a topic, right?
Yeah.
Do you like? I like personally for me. I like films when it comes to like its reflexivity. Come on now,
Yes. Yeah.
Jillian.
Wow. Look at you.
Reflexive films are the best films because it's
Yeah.
like if I'm not gonna get this message to you in one way, I'm gonna get it through you in like film and media,
Yeah.
right? If you're not gonna listen to the news, if you're not gonna listen to others, you're gonna listen to
Yeah.
these movies. And there's like the subliminal messages are the best. Like
Yeah.
films like Joker and Get Out and like
Yeah.
Black Panther and
A
all these films
100.
that we study, and it's like holy shit, like there's so many little Easter eggs in there that we
Yeah.
don't understand, and they're like real world problems
Mm-hmm.
putting these in situations. It's like a documentary but fictional, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, you literally answered the question for me. That's exactly the type of movies that I like. Reflective films, films about like the world around us, films that tell stories about people that, unless we were watching this film, we wouldn't care about otherwise.
Yeah. So I want to tell you a little story that I had when I got my blood work, okay?
Okay, cool.
So when I went at my blood work, I had a Asian lady. She took my blood sample, and you know when they like take your blood and they try to distract you. Oh, where do you go? What school do you go to? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm in film school at York, blah blah blah. And she goes, Oh, and right when I mentioned film, she goes, "Oh, please don't get used to this watered down film industry in Hollywood. Explore,
Mm.
explore. Go to Asia. Go to um, Europe. Go to the Eastern world because the Western world is so watered down with film in Hollywood. It's like
Yeah.
there's." And she said this one thing that stuck with me. She goes, "There's still passion left in it," and I was like,
Wow.
"That's so fucking true." Because you
Mhm.
got films like these generic Avenger films, right? That they're just money makers, and obviously, who doesn't love Avengers?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about Marvel, but I still think it's cool, like the
Mhm.
fact that it has such a big fan base. But like, then you got films like Parasite,
Yeah.
that it's like fucking like it's genius. And when
Yeah.
I was watching the Oscars last year, I'm like, what the fuck is this film beating my Joker nominees? So
Oh,
I was
no.
I was like I was looking at it and I'm like, okay, I have to watch this film. I
Oh,
have
you
to
didn't
watch
watch it
it.
before the
I didn't watch
Oscars.
it.
Okay, that makes
I didn't
sense.
know of it, right?
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
and it was a whole thing about what we were learning about periphery film
Mhm.
and how they don't Hollywood and like this Western world doesn't attract us to
Yeah.
films with subtitles.
Yeah.
Remember I posted on my story that French film we watched, Tomboy,
Yep.
and I posted on my story just to flex my like setup of my
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
projector and lights and everything. And people were like, some people snap back and like, you're not voluntarily watching this film. And I'm like,
Like, people you go to school with or just people you
no,
know?
just people I know.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, 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 it's for school. It's for school. I'm like, why do I gotta defend it though?
Yeah.
Just because it's in French doesn't mean it's a bad film.
Yeah,
And it was
definitely not.
fucking fire film,
It was a
Tomboy,
good
right?
film.
Like the fact that I mean, we're talking about it in the to the people in our class that might be watching this, but Tomboy was a fire film, and when I watched it, I was like, I like read through right through the subtitles.
Yeah.
Babel, the one that we just watched. This did you watch that one?
Of course I did.
Right, that film was fucking amazing, and
Yeah.
it was considered it literally had three scenes. I mean, one
These
scene.
stories that were all,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love how I'm talking about it like they know exactly what movies we watch.
if you don't know, you better
Mm,
go watch Babel.
yeah, it's pretty much about it's a story about the butterfly effect and how everyone around the world is affected. So you have one person that's in Japan or in Asia, it didn't really
Yeah.
specify, that's mute and the communication is mute. And then you have
Yeah.
American family that goes on vacation to an Arab country. I don't know what was
It
it,
was
Morocco?
Morocco,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you have the Arab family and their situation, and
Yeah.
it's like every single person from different places in the world
Are connected.
clashing together,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how one person can affect another person all around the world, and how every single person is going through problems. This is a good film, and all these films wouldn't be introduced to us because the Americanized films want to push like fucking Ant-Man 3 over here, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the passion of film, of theory, like what do you think of that? Like the passion of film. Do you think the passion is still there when it comes to filmmaking in the Western world, I guess?
100%. 100%. And I say that because growing up, I mean, I don't want to get too political, but
Yeah,
growing
yeah.
up, I every film that I watched was it was very white. Like all the characters were white, most of the
Mhm.
characters white. My only introduction to stories from like people of color were because I'm South Asian, so I would watch Bollywood films and stuff like that. So that's where I got my brown people on camera. And
Yeah.
then I do have a lot of like my neighbors were all people of color, so I would watch classic black films because my classmates would talk about them, and they were obviously more drawn to movies that where characters look like them. But what was really being pushed in media was obviously movies that um, were mostly white, like predominantly white cast,
Yeah.
and characters didn't look like me. Stories didn't tell stories that I was familiar with. But now growing up, I'm seeing a lot of that changing. Like
Yeah,
I feel
the
like
film world.
Hollywood is becoming aware of the fact that for the longest time we've been pushing Western stories and specifically white Western stories because the Western world is full of so many different kinds of people. But I feel like, yeah, Hollywood is now more aware of that, and they're
Mhm.
trying to push people of color onto the screen. They're trying to push not just people of color on the screen but people of color behind the screen as well, which is also just as important. A story being told by a person of color about people of color is very important because that's authentic, that's honest. And I feel like I'm seeing that now. Like I'm starting to see people of color take the stance, and I didn't see that as a kid. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's only going to get more and more common as I get older. At least I hope so,
Yeah, no,
because
definitely.
no matter where you're from, it's so beautiful and so important to learn and see stories about people from all over. Because the number one thing I feel like film does is it influences us. And so the media that we watch plays a really big role in the way that we think and the way that we interact with people.
Mhm.
And if we see more diverse films, it's just going to allow for more diversity, more honest conversations between different groups of people. So I definitely think the passion is still there. I know, like, just going to school with like a bunch of films kids, everyone's super passionate. Everybody
Mhm.
wants to tell their stories. And seeing a lot of people of color in our classrooms is also really inspiring because it just shows that the future is looking really bright for all young creators. It's going to be a lot different from what we've seen before. And we can definitely look back at, past Hollywood or just movies in general and learn from them, but also change the narrative and tell stories that weren't told before. So,
Bars,
period.
bars. No, for sure. Like it's cool because I mean, most of the time when you're thinking about films in the like 80s and we're watching like Western films, right? The
Yeah.
white man against the black man.
It's not even like blatant, like white against black or white against this person. It's just
Yeah,
like,
like
characters in the
cowboys and aliens
background.
and like all this like
Yeah.
movies for entertainment. Now it's movies for messages.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's the beauty of film. It's like I think that it pushes a lot of people to think
Yep.
about certain things, whether it's situations that happen in the film that
Yeah.
can relate to what you're watching, what's happening at home,
Yeah.
what's happening around you.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to get into this next topic about favorite films.
Ah.
So personally, for my favorite film right now,
Yeah.
it was Avatar when I was little, like super
Avatar, the one
little.
with the blue people.
Yeah,
Nice.
and it was Avatar, which was it's kind of I watched it again. I was like, okay, it's a long ass fucking movie,
Yeah.
but I liked it just because it had like auctions, blue people. But when I'm looking at it like now, it's like, oh, these white Americans are colonizing this new species and trying to take over their home. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh shit, that's like what they're doing like Amazon rainforest or like what they're doing now, but like clear cutting like deforestation all
Mm-hmm.
around the world. And it's like, oh, that's what they were trying to say. When I was like little and 9, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, look at these blue people fight these white people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking. But over time, I watched this other movie called Hacksaw Ridge,
Oh,
and it was with Andrew Garfield, based on a true story, which is also one of my favorite film genres because I could just picture at the end, it's like, how the fuck did this happen in real
in real
life?
life. Yeah.
Like it gives you like that kind of connection because it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
And he went to war, but the thing was he almost killed his brother when he was little
Yeah.
through fighting. His dad was in World War II, and he had a really bad experience losing all his friends. He was depressed and alcoholic, and he did not. And all he wanted for his sons was not to go to this war, not to go to it.
Um,
And they both went. They both registered because they're like, look, everyone around me is registering. I would look like a coward if I
yeah.
didn't. And there's one really good scene in it where he was at court because he didn't want to touch a gun. He was not he thou shalt not kill. He took it literally,
Wow.
and he never touched the gun, and he went through so much, right, all this pain and suffering, and they wouldn't let him fight in the war until his dad came in and said and told his general, right, he came in, put his uniform on, something that he swore he'd never do again,
Yeah.
just for his son to fight in the war. And it's kind of like, and then he ended up saving so many people in the war, and he was like honored like the best medic, and he saved all these
Yeah.
people. And it's called Hacksaw Ridge because what he did is he gathered bodies, like people around with no weapons,
Yeah.
grabbed them, brought them down the ridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they had quotes, and at the end of the film they put like the interview of the actual characters.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
I love when they do that because it's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, like now this film is just so much more real.
Yeah.
And overall, the storyline was just fucking amazing. If you
Yeah.
guys haven't
I gotta
watched
look into it.
Hacksaw Ridge, is crazy. But now 29 from 2019,
Mm-hmm.
I would say my films, like 2019 was a fucking huge year.
Yeah.
Like I think, when did Get Out come out?
I think it came out in
18.
2018. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay, I watched Get Out in 2019.
Yeah.
Not I didn't watch it. I watched it like on Netflix. I think they
Yeah.
had it on vacation. That is a fucking film, like
Phenomenal.
genius
So
film.
good.
I remember my dad watching, and he goes, "Oh, this is the Jordan Peele guy. How did he direct this? How did he direct this?" Because it's like
Mm-hmm.
he's always a comedy guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Standing out. But now my favorite film is Joker
Yeah.
for sure. What do you think about Joker?
I watched Joker after the Oscars, after all the hype was over. I was a little late. It's a
Uh-huh.
beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Such a good movie. I personally don't follow. Is it Avengers or Marvel?
It's the thing. The beautiful thing is,
It doesn't matter.
that's DC Comics with
Okay,
Batman and
whoa, whoa,
Joker.
whoa. I was so off.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't even matter. Like, you don't have to really be a DC, whatever you
Yeah.
just said, fan to enjoy that movie. And I think everybody, no matter like if you're into that stuff or not, knows the basic storyline of Joker, which is that he's a villain. But that story definitely completely flipped the script. You know, it gave us a backstory that was different from any other backstory we've gotten about Joker.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people had some like political point of views off of that movie.
Yeah, like, oh, it didn't follow the origins of Joker. It's like it wasn't supposed to. It wasn't
Yeah.
fucking supposed to, okay?
Yeah.
Todd Phillips didn't want to make another film about a basic Joker like they did in Suicide Squad,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
He didn't want to do that. He wanted to flip the whole fucking script. What I say all the time when I defend the topic about Joker didn't follow the DC, what the DC Comics said, he wasn't a character. It's like, no. They took the term Joker,
Yeah.
the psychotic person that Joker is,
Yeah.
not the person that was a good guy, fell into acid. Bro, please don't quote me on this. I do not fucking know, but from viewing comics and everything,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he fell into acid and he's just like, oh, I'm Joker, I'm evil now. But don't quote me on that. But he's not that guy.
Yeah.
He's a guy. They took this term and he put it into a real life person's shoes.
Yeah.
Everywhere around us, and it was literally a story about the power of love.
Yep.
Through a villain character.
Yeah.
And it showed empathy. It showed how when you watched that film, you felt bad for this villain.
Yeah.
You were on the villain side, and you had you were rationalizing his thoughts when he was doing evil things.
Because you get a backstory now. You kind of know why he's motivated to do what he does.
And it was just insane because not only was the film correlated to Joaquin Phoenix's backstory of how he felt like he was the Joker all along.
Yeah.
And how, you know, that theory of Heath Ledger becoming like so into the Joker that he couldn't handle himself. And I think that's bull, but the fact that that was a storyline that people were going with.
Yeah.
Joaquin was the Joker before he even got the role. Todd Phillips wrote this fucking script for Joaquin. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know what the fuck Joaquin. I thought he looked. When I saw the trailer pop up on recommended, I was like, oh, this guy looks fucking creepy.
He played that role so well.
Like he was so insanely good in that. And
every little detail he got.
It wasn't even the acting that got me. It was the fact that it was a story about violence that showed the power of love.
Or the lack thereof.
Lack of love.
Yeah.
Lack of love creates these characters. You see all these, you know, when we're talking about tragic events that happening in America or Canada, right? The school shootings, the just last year, I don't know if it was last year, 2 years ago, that psychotic guy drove on the
that was 2 years ago.
Young Street and just right, and he ran over all those people because a girl didn't like him back.
Yeah.
And it's like, on the outside you think, oh my god, what a selfish act, and then you kind of think like, holy fuck, this movie literally just rationalized why they do these things.
Yeah.
And people were coming from it as a point where it's like, oh, this is not a good depiction of mental health. I'm like, yo, none of that shit ever happened. Do you know the theory of Joker?
No, I don't know a lot about
I gotta tell you this. Okay, so every single thing that happened in that film, not everything was real.
Yeah.
Majority of it was in his head.
Oh yeah, I know that. Most of it was in his head. Yeah.
So him killing Murray in his head, the riot, in his head, the subway killings in his head, everything, him killing his mom in his head, him killing his best friend in his head, all these people that him dating that girl, that was a teaser. That was like a, hey, spoon feed you this, figure the rest out.
Yeah.
That was also in his head. Him in the Murray Franklin show in his head. It was all these. It kind of like visualized what a schizophrenic person does, or like visualize his dreams and aspirations.
Yeah.
And it showed to him the amount of failure that is around him, the embarrassment that he got from the Murray Franklin show.
Yeah.
That scene right there, that was called the Oscar-winning scene. You know that asinment that we have to do, the film analysis assignment.
Yeah.
I might analyze that scene because that scene right there, that was not only did it show the mockery of how the media mocks these people to get their ratings up.
Yeah.
But it also was a true story that Joaquin did in his film. And I said this in the video about watching films, like what my first semester of film school talked about.
Yeah. I
But
watched that, by the way.
yeah,
It's a good video.
thank you. I said that about, and I explained it more briefly, so you could just watch it if you really want a whole explanation. But that scene right there was a correlation, a reflexive
Yeah.
part of that film, and it was so iconic because it just took this comic book character,
Yeah.
it took ideas from the comics, and then it put it into real world, and you were in the mind of a psychopath,
Yeah.
and it really made you think about how you treat people.
Yeah.
If Joker had a love from his mom, if Joker if okay, let's say Arthur.
Yeah.
If Arthur had love from his mom, if Arthur had a supportive girlfriend or companion, if Arthur had a role model that he believed in, if Arthur had friends that loved him or appreciated him as a friend. But no, his mom said, "Oh, you're not funny." Role model made fun of him, even though that was in his head. Subway killings, about like the subway killings, like you could see if you watch that over again,
Yeah.
you could see the cut of where it was real
Yeah.
and where it was fake. Right when he pulls out that gun, that's fake. That part's fake. That part's in his head.
That was, yeah.
Right. But what was real was him getting beat up and probably just walking home
Mm-hmm.
and going in him pretending he killed those people
Yeah.
and running and did the subway scene.
Yeah.
Like that subway scene, like when he was looking into the mirror,
Yeah.
he never killed anyone.
Yeah.
He just imagined it. Like he was
Mhm.
looking himself in the mirror, and it's just, I get goosebumps every time I fucking talk about this film. It's just,
It's a great
there's so
film.
much to cover.
So much to unpack about
but
it.
I want to know your favorite film.
My favorite film,
Was it the one you showed
honestly,
me?
that's one of them. I have two that I kind of don't know how to like. I can't choose one between the
Mhm.
one over the other. It's definitely Moonlight by Barry Jenkins.
Fucking love that film. bro.
So beautiful. And it's also Paris, Texas by Wim Wenders. I love both those films a lot. I really love Moonlight just because, first of all, I was just completely taken aback by just how Barry Jenkins told this story. First of all, we don't really hear these stories in the first place. Like LGBTQ people are not really represented in Hollywood or in Western film, especially LGBTQ people who are Black or people of color.
Yeah.
And then Barry Jenkins took this story about a little Black boy and him and his coming of age and understanding his identity, and not just his identity just in terms of like his sexuality, but also like how he fits into the world being a gay Black man, because race plays a big role in how you see yourself fitting into the world as well. And the way Barry Jenkins told that story was so unconventional. He told it as honestly as he possibly could. For one, I remember watching an interview that he did, and he said that he wanted to bring the art house into the hood. And that's like one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard, because the typical depiction we get of the hood or like the projects is it's violent and it's so poor and people are literally struggling to be alive. But that's not the truth. Like I grew up in a hood myself, and that's not how I remember it at all. Like I just remember people being alive and people living and interacting. And sure, that's different from like upper class or middle class families, but it wasn't like we were like on the ground, like crawling,
Yeah.
struggling to survive, or like people were getting shot on the streets just for walking in, plain daylight. But we're just alive, like we're just regular people. We're not depicted like that. And then Barry Jenkins made this whole movie where the hood looked beautiful, like it just looked like home.
That is true. That is true.
It just looked like home. It just looked like somebody's home. And he used his cinematographer and just made everything look so beautiful and so artistic. And that's never happened before.
Cinematography on that film
It was so
fucking
phenomenal. I think
crazy.
the cinematographer's name is Lanx, whatever. But he did a great job. He did
Yeah.
such a great job. And yeah, it was just like a story being told by somebody who was familiar with that story. Like Barry Jenkins isn't gay, but he is a Black man, so he knows like the hypersexuality and hypermasculinity behind being a Black man and the pressures that Black men feel. And he was able to tell a story about that. Like the story is not just about a Black boy coming to terms with the fact that he's gay. It's also about his identity in terms of race and how he belongs in his neighborhood and how he belongs in society. And Barry Jenkins told that story so authentically and so beautifully, and he used every element from like the dialogue to the cinematography through costume, through
Like
body
it was a.
language.
I'm so glad that went over La La
Yeah, exactly. Because
Land.
I mean, both movies are great, but this movie was just different. It was a
It was the fact
masterpiece.
that one was like a musical, lover story, romance. I never watched La La
La
Land.
La Land is a beautiful movie too. I really did like that movie, but Moonlight
It was
did
just so
something
much
that was
deeper.
never, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
never
never
done
done
before.
before, and
Yeah.
it was so special for that reason. And I was just enamored when I first seen it by the story because I love stories,
Mhm.
and also by the way that the story was executed. The visuals were so phenomenal.
That was one of the films we studied in film school with it
Yeah,
when it comes to like lighting.
yeah,
And for the video that is coming or that came out according to this podcast, I used this blue lighting
yeah. Blue is
bec-
so nice.
because of Moonlight. One of the shots of me like the shower scenes and everything. I'm pretty. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch that. It was pretty fucking cool. I love that video. But I'll show you it after.
Yeah,
And most of the shots were inspired through Moonlight.
yeah,
The face in the water, the
yeah,
rinsing, the looking in the mirror, these angles, all these things, lighting, how the camera's positioned,
yeah.
right? When it comes to like, oh, the when little or the what's his
Little,
name,
yeah. When he was
little,
running, the shakiness of the
right?
camera.
The him in the water when it
Yep,
was like, oh, now we're in the water enjoying it.
with
The
him.
lighting, that it was like so it bounced off their faces with the
Hmm.
sweat, and it seemed so hot, and you're like, how am I feeling hot? How do I feel the hotness?
Yeah.
Why do I feel like I'm in Mexico right now?
Hmm.
Right, watching this film and with like the squinting eyes and the bright ass fucking sun
Yeah.
and the sweat on their faces, and they're like, it was just fucking amazing. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, the acting, that
Was
teenager,
so
that
good.
that
Damn.
the middle guy, the
Yeah.
teenager, holy fuck.
Did a great job.
Like I think like if I'm talking about like the stages, that teenager run through
Yeah, he
was
was
the
so good.
best. Like he
So
was
good.
it was like I was uncomfortable for him.
Hmm.
It was so
Yeah.
fire. That's
Yeah.
why I love Moonlight, like overall. Like I
Yeah.
remember watching it when it won that Oscar in 2016, and I was like, what the fuck is this film?
Yeah, I was supposed to watch it with my brother in theaters, and for whatever reason, I think I had a lot of homework or something. I just didn't end up watching it with him in theaters, and
But
I regret that.
these are not the types of movies we watch though. Like they're
Yeah.
not the types of movies that they're promo in theaters and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like I would never see myself watching Parasite if it never won an Oscar.
Yeah.
And
That's the sad
that's
thing.
the sad thing, because it's like there's so much more
Yeah.
to film
To
that we're
film.
like hidden,
Yeah,
you know?
that we're missing. That's why well my brother did me a solid for a bit and he got a subscription with Criterion Channel and they curate movies from like all over the world. So I've been watching films for the past year that are just like so different. Like each film is so different. They're from different parts of the world. They're telling different stories. They're executed differently.
Hmm.
And I really appreciate that because it's only making my understanding of film that much better. And I'm only broadening my perspective and I'm only understanding film even better just from watching the different ways films are are being told or the different ways they're being filmed
And they all have one thing that they want to do, and that is tell a
and tell a
story.
story.
And
Exactly.
it's so amazing because I'm watching these behind the scenes of
Yeah.
films because it fascinates me. And
Yeah.
that's my goal this year, kind of just if Corona ever stops. That's my goal, to like get on a film set and do behind the scenes or just do
Yeah.
something like fucking get coffee for these people just to see
Yeah, just to see what they're
where
doing.
like how everything works, and
Yeah.
like what the best way someone is to like tell someone how to do something, how to coordinate people, how to know coordinate crew. That's my goal when it comes to film. So I want to be able to do that. So crossing my fingers that this shit settles
Yeah.
down, so I'm able to do that even if I have to wear a mask or whatever.
Yeah, I don't care.
But I was watching these behind the scenes videos, and it was about Tarantino. It was a Tarantino, obviously, and the way he runs his films is like,
Really.
it is like, yo, my dream would just be to be on that set.
With him?
Like, oh my god, there's so much passion in his films.
Yeah.
There's a video I want
He's
to
such
show
a
you.
passionate dude.
He goes there's a scene. It was him filming Inglorious Black Bastards, and every single shot, their films are literally 3-second clips stitched together,
Yeah.
and every single shot has a purpose, whether
Yeah.
that's lighting, whether that's color. And in this video he was like, okay, one more time, why? And then he had the whole fucking crowd go, because we love making movies. And
Wow. That's
wow, I just want to be
crazy.
there. I just want
Yeah.
to be there and just say that, because it's like the passion of like it, not only directing it, it's just like in your head exactly how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
And these 3 seconds are so important. No, one more time, and
Yeah,
the amount of effort
that goes
and
into it.
planning, and there's so much more than just a camera and a face.
Yeah,
And we were talking about it before, but like, oh, it's just a movie, it's just movies, like they're
it's
just
really
filming, and it's just
not.
like, no, it's a whole craft.
It's a whole craft, and there's so much power to film, and I think that's the number one thing that some people really get and some people really miss is there's so much freaking power in film. And
Mhm.
that power can be used for the better, it can also be used for the worse, but it's so important to be aware of that film does have a lot of power to it. And that's why we have to be critical when we like watch films, because like we can either take something good from a film or we could take something bad. Like there's a certain narration that could be repeated over and over again, and that wires the way that we think as an audience, as spectators. And if we aren't critical about all of that, then we're gonna end up being gullible.
Yeah.
And I say that because just for example, in the media, when indigenous people are painted out to be savages or to be people to be afraid of,
Hmm.
sometimes the story is not even about them, but somehow they play a role in the story, and that's how they're represented. And if we're not critically aware of the fact that maybe a movie that has nothing to do with indigenous people but has a scene where they make an indigenous person or indigenous group of people portray them that way, we're just going to start believing that as audience members. We're
Exactly.
going to think that that's the way to think, and that's how we should view people who look like that, people who are indigenous. If we don't criticize these films, if we don't look at them closely and notice what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, we're just going to follow whatever they're saying, and what we're
Yeah.
being told is obviously
Facts.
wrong. Um, so yeah, there's so much power in film, and that's why every element of film is so important. Like the writing is so important because the story you're telling essentially is what you're going to start with, and then how you tell that story is also so important because you want to keep the audience engaged. And not just that, you can do so much with like all the things involved in making a film to get that message and get that feeling across.
Yeah.
Like even just like your setup in your room, like you could easily do the same podcast with just like your room lights and like not even microphones. Like we could just do it off of your laptop, right? But
Uh-huh.
that's not gonna be as visually appealing or even as meaningful as you setting up all these lights and like bring these equipment that's gonna make it that much better.
I think most of the time when it comes to equipment based, it just the for me especially, like, I'm a perfectionist, and if I do something, I want to do it right.
Yeah.
And for a while, I mean, if you look at my first podcast, it was just what I had. I had a camera,
Mm-hmm.
I had a microphone,
Yeah.
I had a computer, and I just pressed play
Yeah.
on voice memo, and I just recorded it.
Yeah.
And then as what this is like the 17th one.
Yeah.
So
You
right,
upgraded.
I just as I go on, I start becoming more committed towards this podcast,
Yeah.
and now the lights are new upgrades. So
Yeah.
it's fun to play around with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
if I want, it's my passion, I might as well invest into my passion. Because to be honest, I'm not really spending money on anything else. What the fuck are
Exactly.
they? What am I gonna spend money on?
That's what I think about
Alcohol at
too.
a party? Where am I gonna party? Go to clubs? I'm not gonna fucking go to clubs. I'm not gonna chill with friends. I'm literally just gonna do this.
Yeah.
So I might as well spend a little bit more money on it,
Yeah.
and have like a good quality
Yeah,
content,
and make
right?
it that much better for the
And it's
audience.
so much fun, like
It's so
editing this
much
stuff.
fun.
Like, yo, it takes a long time
I can
to
imagine.
like put it all together and
Yeah.
cut out all the shit we say, and set everything up is one gig, matching all this, like, it's this camera, that camera, these microphones, everything, matching all
Yeah.
that up. It's a lot of work, and if I didn't have passion in it, I wouldn't want to fucking do it.
Exactly.
But I
Exactly.
say this all the time, I finally found my passion into YouTube now, and now what I'm doing is I'm just getting my thoughts and I'm putting it on paper,
Yeah.
and from that paper I'm putting it to visuals, and
Yeah.
then my commentary is what I'm thinking all the time.
Yeah.
So they're like timestamps of what I'm always thinking about.
Yeah.
So these videos that I'm putting together,
Yeah.
they're like for people,
Yeah.
but they're for me
So
too.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they're mostly for me, because most of these stories that I'm telling,
Yeah.
most of these things that I'm like talking about, the one that I talked about being comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like in my room looking up at the sky, right? I'm in the shower thinking about it. I'm on a late night drive listening to music thinking about it. Will
Yeah.
I ever be comfortable? Will I ever be comfortable? And then I pull these videos that I had in my thing about, looking at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
That was a shot in the scene, that I included. Listening to my vinyl, like the whole vinyl wall of my albums,
Yeah.
that was a shot I included. All these little things, me looking up at the sky, like, I mean, at my room wall,
Yeah.
just thinking that was a shot I included. All these
Mhm.
shots are so close and held so close to me
Yeah.
that it's not even about what I'm saying anymore. It's like a story, like it's like a reaction to all these thoughts.
Yeah.
And these are the videos I love to make. Like every time I go on like tangents and stuff, I
Mhm.
pull a voice memo and I
Yeah.
record myself.
Nice.
And now instead of just listening to the voice memos or having it as documentary, I use those voice memos in videos like what does the voice in my head mean?
Yeah.
Or I had a good conversation about the power, like what I learned in film school about
Yeah.
with my brothers, and how film is so much more than just like pressing record.
Yeah.
It's a whole other world, it's a whole other craft.
Yeah.
And I touched upon it in like videos, but I'm like, yo, I have to do a podcast about theory, because I'm like looking at it now. I'm like, yo, I was not gonna go to film school for theory. I was gonna go just to learn how to work,
Yeah.
just to learn how to I was gonna go to college for it,
Yeah.
just because I wanted to get a degree and
Yeah.
get right into the industry.
Yeah.
But now if I didn't go, like there's so much to learn.
There's so much. Yeah.
Like not everyone needs film school.
Not
That's
yeah.
but like like learning this shit is so much more like engaging. And when I'm watching a film now, I'm looking for all these things. I'm looking at the gaze. I'm looking
Yeah.
at all these terminologies like the periphery and like
Yeah.
the centripetal and all these like
Yeah.
terminology that I'm learning and I'm using.
Yeah.
I'm actually using what I'm learning. I'm
Yeah.
not just pushing it away. Like that exam that we did for
It
film
was
art,
long.
it was so long,
But I'm so glad
but
that
I
we
was
did it.
so like that. Even just analyzing Parasite, I love the film journals. I love the whole concept of the
Yeah.
whole thing, because every single film that we do, I watch it. I get that brief. Oh, that was good. And then in the tutorials we analyze.
Yeah.
In the film journal, in the film the lectures we analyze.
Mhm.
And then makes me find a whole other appreciation
For the film.
of what this film was. When we
Yeah.
go in breakout rooms and we talk about what this film meant to us, what we're thinking of. Sometimes in our breakout rooms we do like clip analysis,
Oh wow.
and we
Nice.
look at it and I'm like, holy fuck, well, the first time I watched this film it was nothing.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, they used the mirror because it was a view of their friend that was looking at the mirror, so they angled it to the mirror, and then their friend turned around, so the camera also turned around.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, that's so genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's so sick. So overall, just film itself, it's like an art form.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just, they degrade it because they think it's easy. Oh,
Yeah.
look, I'm like filming. I'm filming,
Yeah,
right?
it's not. It's not even close. I think that's the biggest thing that film students or like art students get told all the time is like it's easy. It's whatever you're doing.
You do
It's
it
just a
then. You do
hobby.
it then. You
It's
do
just
it
a
then.
hobby, but it's like no, like when you're really passionate about something, like so much more love, dedication goes into it. Like it's not just me pulling out my phone or my camera and just shooting something. I'm gonna think first. I'm gonna like draft, make ideas, brainstorm, and then I'm gonna actually go into it. And even then, I'm gonna be so meticulous. I'm gonna look at every little
I'm gonna show you a
detail.
video. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It's about Tarantino. This video just makes me want to make films. So.
You don't have to know how to make a movie. If you truly love cinema with all your heart and with enough passion, you can't help but make a good movie.
Wow.
You don't have to go to school. You don't have to know a lens, a 40 and a 50 and a fuck all that shit. Crossing the line, none of that shit's important. If you just truly love cinema with enough passion and you really love it, then you can't help but make a good movie.
Doesn't that make you just want to fucking create?
Go make something.
You
Yeah.
know, I just want to like,
100.
I just want to create every time I watch that. I'm like, that was the first TikTok I actually saved, because I was like, it was scrolling through my mind, and I was debating on making this this film that I'm doing, not film, but like, you know what I'm saying, like YouTube video.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, got right off my chair and just started writing,
Yeah.
because it's like those little things like that push. It's like, you're successful. I'm comfortable that you're successful and you're thinking about that. And you're telling me I don't gotta go to school, but like I'm gonna go to school anyways because like I like the theory and I like the backup.
Yeah.
It just keeps you in the industry. It's a really easy thing to distract yourself from what's actually going on in the world, and especially with film, it could get super discouraging.
100%. Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
even just within yourself, like doubting yourself or falling out of ideas and stuff like that can make you literally want to give up.
Like insane.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Like every single time I've done like these videos, like like for like assignment number 1,
Mm-hmm.
like even that video, I'm just like, oh shit, I wish I did this instead. I
Yeah,
wish I did that
same.
instead, or I wish I got another cut, or I wish I held the shot a little longer. Like you're never ever going to like have a perfect run, and it's so comfortable seeing like, you know, like I had that guy Matthew Guido on the podcast before, and he was telling me like, you know, like you're just never going to go 100%. Like you're always gonna have to work on the spot. You're always gonna have to improvise, and that's the part of the creative process. Right? It's
Yeah.
like the beauty and the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you have like anything else you just kind of like add or stuff about like in general, go ahead.
Oh my God. I mean, the conversation can change so quickly. Honestly, yeah, I agree with everything that you've been saying. Film is such a beautiful thing. Anyone can make a film, that's 100% true, but it's I feel like love and passion behind storytelling that makes the story that much better,
Mm-hmm.
because then you put in that much more work. Like if you're telling a story you're not passionate about, you're just not going to pay attention to those details that can make that much of a difference, right? But if you do it because you love it or you really want to tell this story, I think that's something Martin Scorsese said. But he was like, if you really want to tell a story, that's what you need to make a film. Like you need
Masterclass ad.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it
it
was
was
a
a cool.
masterclass ad.
Yeah,
I
but
remember that.
it stuck with me because I was like, he's so right. Like if you really want to tell a story, you're gonna have the love and passion for it. You're gonna be able to tell that story, which is really important. But also, like whether you love making films or you love watching films, it's really important to be critical when you're watching film, and pay attention to the film. I mean, every time I watch a film, I like to just watch it. I don't want to like me being a film student, me being someone who loves film so deeply. Like obviously, I'm gonna look into like the shots, the cinematography, the sound, the costuming, but the first time I watch a film, I just want to enjoy it because that's
Yeah.
essentially the point, right? It's a story.
It's
It's
an
a form of
entertainment, yeah.
entertainment. So I want to enjoy the story and see what I feel after watching that movie. And then afterwards, I go back a second time and then I look at the close.
Second watchers are
That's where I like
underrated.
look that much closer, and that's where I like find all the Easter eggs and like analyze and
It makes
criticize.
you so much like every time I watch a film the first time, it usually goes over my head.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, which is common. It's just like listening to an album. Some of the songs you
It
don't
could
like.
go
some
over
of the
your
songs
head, or
like.
you just miss
You
a
miss
lot of
you
it.
missed a lot of it, or you just oh I gotta rewatch it. Second watches, like you see
Catch
so
that
much
much more.
more, and it's the feeling it gives you.
That's what I'm saying. Like
It's
the
the
first time,
subconscious mind that it
yeah,
just tackles. Where you're just like, okay, what the fuck is this movie about? And
Yeah.
you just do immense research, and you're just
Yeah.
like, holy shit.
that's why I think the first watch is important to just watch, because it's the feeling that's gonna make you want to watch it again. Like if I watch a movie, even if I can't relate to it, if it makes me feel something, even if I can't like point out what that feeling is, if I feel something, it's gonna make me want to watch it again, or just do that much more research into the film, right? But yeah, being critical about film is so important too, because again, film has so much power, and that's really important.
I like that.
Yeah.
Film does have power. Just
A
like
lot of
music has
power.
power. Art has power.
Art
Has power. And the reason why it's so it's like underrated, the fact that people like just push it aside and they think it's easy, but it's like the most immense creative form ever. Like
Yeah.
there's no such thing like music. Do you know how much impact music has on
Yeah.
someone? Like I have a fucking whole wall. Each picture on that wall has a story
Yeah.
that reached out to me and told me something. Each
Yeah.
album on that wall had a whole thing about whether it was coming out of a hood story, or dealing with mental health, or dealing with heartbreaks. Like
Mhm.
I'm looking at it all right now, or dealing with leading a family, or dealing like there's so much in like these art forms, and film itself is so powerful
Yeah.
to a fact that art in general, right? Any single thing that has to do with the left brain
Mhm.
is so powerful, and creativity is underwhelmed because all these people are like, oh, math and science pays the bills. Doctor,
Yeah.
lawyer, like the
If we
generic
didn't have art,
white
humans would
collar.
literally be robotic. Like
Right.
art is what keeps us going.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I
Yeah,
love that.
thanks.
We could end off with that
Yeah.
if you want. Do
Yeah.
you have anything else to say? Anything else
Honestly,
to
no. I
add?
think we touched
I think
everything.
we covered a lot.
Yeah,
Like
we really
there's so
did.
much. It's there's a difference between like covering like a good amount, because we could go on and on about
Forever,
it, but to
yeah.
like squish it into like probably what, like 35-40 minutes or even more, I don't even fucking know. That is, I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
Every time I film a podcast, if I run out of things to say, then that means I know I finished my point.
We got everything.
Because
I
honestly,
promise.
I don't have another segue. I think I
Mhm.
covered everything.
We did. I'm pretty sure we did.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
kind of unfortunate that we can't be in like film school with everyone.
Yeah,
eh?
that's the number one thing that I'm upset about, is just not being able to collaborate.
Because like even the thing that we're doing now with working with film.
Yeah.
Like damn. I mean, I'm glad because I get to use my equipment. I don't have to be forced to use
Yeah.
like old school stuff and learn it. But it's that experience I'm missing out on,
Yeah,
which kind of pisses
the
me
number
off,
one thing
you
for
know?
me is collaborating because I can have a cool idea, you can have a cool idea, and we do it together. It can be
Yeah.
that much better.
So if you could show yourself out, I'll link your YouTube and everything
Okay,
down
cool.
below.
Yeah, my name is Sarah, and
How do you say
my
your last name?
Shahab.
Shahab.
Actually, my first name is not even Sarah; it's Sarah. It's an
Sarah?
Arabic name, but it's the same thing. It's a biblical and Islamic name.
Okay, I'll say Sarah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so my Instagram is just Sarah with an H at the end, and then S, 2 H's, B. That's it. That's all there is to
That's
it.
all there is to it.
Yeah.
If you are watching from York, and you came because you saw my
Period.
and Sarah's face, or Sarah. Sarah. Sorry.
Yeah,
for
that's
saying
okay. No worries.
if you saw me and Sarah's face, and you clicked on it, can you comment below? Cause I just want
Yeah,
to
that'd be
know
cool.
if you know
That'd be cool.
who I'm like gonna look at
Yeah.
now in class and be like, hey.
Hey,
What's
remember me from
going
the video?
on?
Period.
Okay, thanks for watching.
It don't